Hi guys, today I am going to be making a cheeseburger soup and this is for the November Soup Spectacular 2022 and it is hosted by Diane at the Canny Nana, and I'm sure I will put a link to the playlist or put a link to everyone's channels that's involved or something like that. But let's get right into this recipe. Okay, for starters, we need to brown 1 pound of burger. And so I have got that going already. Then you are going to want to chop up 1 medium onion, but I didn't have 1 medium white onion, so I am just doing 2 small white onions, and you will brown those in a pot with some butter. Now the original recipe of this calls for it to have celery and carrots, but I'm sorry, when I think of a cheeseburger, I do not think of celery and carrots. So I changed that recipe to where it includes a can of Rotel instead of celery and carrots. I figured, you know, when you think of a cheeseburger, you think of tomatoes and pickles and, you know, stuff like that. Mind you, I'm not putting pickles in this soup, but that's what you think of. So, right now we've got the 1 pound of hamburger going, and I am getting my onions cut up. Then we are going to have 3 large russet potatoes. You will also need 3 cups of chicken broth. You will need 4 tablespoons of butter to cook the onion in. You will need 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, half a teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and then I went over the potatoes and the chicken broth. You'll also need a 1/4 cup of flour, 4 cups of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, 1½ cups of milk, and a 1/4 cup of sour cream. So that's the recipe. I know it seems like a lot, but it's not really. Nothing compared to that last collab I did, Mr. Tony at Kettle Kitchen. So I am going to get these onions chopped, and my potatoes I will probably go ahead and get peeled, so I will have them ready. I normally chop better than this. These onions are just really funky shaped. Okay, so the ground hamburger is almost done. I think it is done actually. So we want to drain the grease off of it. I need to get 1 tablespoon of butter. Put in saucepan so I can get the onions sauteed, and I'm not using an actual tablespoon. So we will still, actually no, we won't, because I don't know how to make roux. So we'll use my cheaters method. So, let's get the hamburger drained. Okay. So, I got the hamburger drained, so I'm going to set this aside because it won't be needed anymore. Now I'm going to set the hamburger aside because it won't be needed until a little bit later. Okay.
Let's make it nice. Oh gosh, this is like my favorite. No, it's good.
Now I do drain the rotel. Okay, so we've got the butter melted. Now we just have to cook the onions until they are done. Now in the original recipe, it also says to cook the celery and the carrots with the onions. So if you decide to go that route, that's what it says. But I'm not doing the original recipe. I'm doing it my way. Just like you can do it your way. Okay, so we got those onions cooking. We just need to wait till they're soft. Okay, the onions are almost done, so you want to add in the 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, the 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, okay, you'll want 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Give this a good stir around with those onions. Get soft, and then you can go ahead and add the rotel. I wouldn't necessarily think of Italian seasoning and oregano on a cheeseburger either, but the recipe calls for it. I went ahead and used it the first time, and my husband loves it, so that's, I decided to keep that part of it. Okay, the onions are done, so I'm going to go ahead and add in the rotel. This smells so good. Okay, now is the time that add in our beef, our chicken broth of 3 cups, you will also add in your potatoes at this point. And remember, that was 3 large russet potatoes, and you want to do them all in kind of like a bite size. Okay, at this point, you want to let it sit and simmer for 10 to 12 minutes until the potatoes are tender. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this up a little bit, but I'm going to set my timer for 12, and then I'll check the potatoes then. But at this point, you should have your 1 pound of ground beef, 1 tablespoon of butter, 1 medium white onion, and then 1 can of Rotel, 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, half a teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of black pepper, 3 large russet potatoes, and 3 cups of chicken broth. That is what you should have in the pan right now. Okay, while I'm waiting for the potatoes to cook, I took advantage of the time and I got my 4th cup of sour cream ready. I got my 1.5 cups of milk ready. And I got my 4 cups of sharp cheddar cheese. And then I got my flour to use as the thickener. And so now we wait. Okay, the potatoes are now tender. So we're going to add in the rest of the ingredients except for the flour. And I'll show you how I do that. So here is the 1.5 cups of milk.
The blue.
4 cups of cheese.
The blue cotton candy is blue. And so
Let's
this
see if I can get this
the
one.
watermelon
And I
is
got it.
pink.
Nope.
I don't know why.
And that is our 4th cup of sour cream. Get all that yummy goodness. Nails on a chalkboard. Okay. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and give all of this a good stir. Kind of get all that cheese melted up and mixed in real good. Now technically it could be served at this point, but for it to be kind of hearty and more comforting, we're going to thicken it up a little bit. And that's where the flour comes in. It says to make a roux using butter and flour, but I cannot do a roux to save my life, and so I am going to thicken it up my way. Okay, so what I do is I sit there and I put flour in a small container and I take cold water and then I just sit here and I stir it with a fork and go around in circles to get out any clumps of the flour. And the water has to be cold because if you use warm water, then it'll start to thicken up already. And so you don't want that. Okay, I got my flour and my water mixture. It's just flour and cold water, and you make kind of a runny paste out of it. But the key, one of the keys for it to be smooth is as you're dropping it in, you want to stir where you're dropping it. That way you don't get clumps and lumps and stuff like that. But of course in soup like this, it kind of be hard to tell. You don't want it extremely thick, but you don't want it runny either. Okay. Our cheeseburger soup is done. You can let it set and simmer for a little bit more if you want, but you can sit here and eat it right away. Knowing my husband, it'll be right away.
Yeah.
You had your eyes closed on that one.
Oh, man, it smells good. Sorry.
You're fine, my love.
Can't wait. That's my favorite.
Another fine one for.